and also to grandfathers and preachers. When I asked my mother what I was like as a baby, she says, the roof needed fixing. Memory like a tile that slips, falls slant. You were born, she repeats, and I just needed that roof fixed. Nothing is fixed. Every day is different, I guess. Quiet baby, loud baby. You can't pin down a single trait to claim the whole self. What about when you were pregnant? Did I kick a lot? Did dad sing to me in the womb? My mother drifts into what she calls incidents. Incidents, what Wordsworth called the lowest allurements in poetry, my mother called times my father got drunk, volatile and prone to fuming and furies where anything might slip, tongue, temper, tile. My mother sits on the step looking out at her garden. She is named for a herb and likes to talk and talk about everything and nothing, from which poets read the golden bow to that man in Covent Garden who collects scollywogs. Everything is a piece of some larger and endless subject. My mother volunteers in charity shops and delivers food to people who live alone. My mother lives alone and won't talk about herself. She points at one flower in a pot, says, that's from Grand's garden. I took the seeds after she died. She'd taken them from her Grand's garden. I'd lived in her house most of my life and she'd never told me that. She says it quietly and quickly changes the subject, as if to tuck this small detail away between politics and neighborhood gossip, as if trying to bury it amongst the life of everything else. This morning, your mother and I lay in bed, waiting for a call from the plumber, because the kitchen walls were damp and peeling, like in the film Repulsion. Hallways of wailing walls tear a woman open, which is the worst metaphor to sleep next to. So we do something soft. We begin calling out random names, pretending to answer the phone that hadn't yet rung. Hello? Yes. Hang on a second. Solomon? Claude? Ezra? Searching the sounds that might summon you, we listen for the echo of what the tired rooms might have to bear. At first, I can't hear your heart. I ask for the monitor to be brought closer. The monitor looks like the retro radio my father slept next to when I was a child. I put my head on the speaker, feel the pulse between the father that was half asleep and the music he leaned into. Isaiah, Isaac, your great-grandfather was a preacher. There is a poem on the back of his sermon, in cursive, so hard to decipher, images jotted down, perhaps rushed between his other tasks, 4 children and a congregation, where the urge, the ideas kept coming like half-seen visions. I almost hear him whisper the lines to himself, while his sons kick a ball against the side of the house. Thud, thud, against his clarity and concentration. The walls hold an imagined silence that keeps him praying. The last poem I'm going to read is just at the end of this book. So this whole book is 2 sections. A poem started when I was told I was about to be a parent and I was about to become a dad. And then the second poem I started when my son was born. So throughout that poem, you heard me say different names. Those are all different names that I was considering naming my son. To find out the name of him, you'll have to read the book, I guess. But this is the last poem, and there are a lot of different things and images in this poem that tie into other parts of the book. So yeah, it's an honor to be heard, to be absorbed, to have your attention. I do not take it for granted. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to do this. This is the baby sign for the word music. The first word my son signed was music. Both hands, fingers conducting music for everything, even hunger. Open mouth for the chew, chew, spoon, squealing, music. We'd play a record while he ate music. When he wanted milk, so I pour and hum a lullaby, or I Don't Know by Bill Withers, because it's okay not to know what you want, and I want him to know that. Music is wiping the table after the plates. Music is feel my forehead for fever, is whatever occurs in the center of the body, whatever makes arms raise up, up. The second word my son signed was bird, beat finger to thumb, bird for everything outside, window, sky, tree, roof, chimney, aerial, airplane, birds. I saw I'd given him a sign name, fingers to eyes raising from thumbs, wide eye meaning watchful of the earth in two different roots, Hebrew, Sanskrit. I love how he clings to my shoulders and turns his head to point at the soft body of a caterpillar sliding across the counter and signs music. Um, I appreciate the love. Thank you so much. I'm going to introduce the next poet who is a beloved of mine, a poet who means a lot to me and a person who means a lot to me. Ariel John, the Ariel John. Ariel John is a poet from Trinidad and Tobago. Big up. Determined to celebrate the West Indian now while designing our shared survival of the future. Ariel approaches poetry, music, and theatre as medicine for Atlantic peoples, their resilient cultures, and the land and sea they occupy, learning, living, and sharing her work in global spaces, including South Africa, New York, and London. They move beyond the possibilities of art into community care, eco-theology, and decolonization as a lifestyle. Ariel has received generous support from the Artist Residency for Black people fed up with capitalism, and Catapult, among others, as they continue their work as an arts educator and spiritual consultant. Without further ado, Ariel John.
Manja ide manja ide manja ide omiloto. Crown Point, Tobago. I cannot tell how they ended up calling the bay swallows long before the sharks were spotted off of the coast this year, perhaps avenging us for our long-held seaside delicacies, their brethrens, battered golden, under an assortment of condiments and chopped vegetables, inside an otherwise tasteless fried bake. I was not sure what was swallowing what or whom, except for half a dozen manchineel trees littered along the coast, Columbus and his men calling them little apples of death in a surgeon's log on an island too sweltering to grow anything red globe reminiscent. But apple is still the first word that infants on this land learn that A is for. A is also for agony, the anguished scream from first contact with the fruit, the rain dripping off of its leaves, the wet sap on the sand below, even the smoke from trying to burn it down, all of it caustic and could kill with a certain ease. Swallows, with its small family of trees, unassuming, the way trees never truly look like a threat, as green as any other, as willing to offer shade and shelter as any other, but not knowing the cost of their company, found Colombo and his men biting into fruits, and then the fruits bit back, and they could no longer use their mouths, neither for the gospel they were rumored to have come with, or to curse the creator of the Manzanilla de Muerte. Swallows might have had some other settlers later on searching for lumber to repair their boats. And so the rest of the poem is covered in weeping blisters, tearing more tissue as they trail down surrounding skin, as though the men were dissolving in the crooked mouth of the cove, broken down the way food does once it has been swallowed. These windbreaker trees and their busy system of roots, holding the coast safe from careless hands, hearts, from hunters of my grandmothers. Thank you. So thank you, Raymond, for that beautiful introduction. Thank you, Furious Flower, for having us here. It is a real honor to just be in this space, with so many brilliant faces, people, souls. Thank you so much for including me in the start of this conversation. I am in eternal gratitude. Thank you. Doctrine of Signatures after Dominique Matti. Surely the plants, they speak, not just to each other in the mycelium of root, in the weave of their arteries webbing the soil, but to us, the often unlistening, the two-eared, two-eyed, single-mouthed us. And the plant people do not have mouths unless the ribbed pout of a Venus flytrap, unless the red tongues of hibiscus petals in the lick of evening breeze. Their green bodies want us to listen, to notice, to be keen with our gaze. They want to tell us things in color, in posture, in living shape, a sign language of leaves, barkwood, blossoms, sounding themselves to anyone willing, watching. They try to tell us how they care, how they could cure, how they give of themselves, written in the tendril, the signature of all things. And I have always wanted to be bush literate. I have always wanted to know the wild crop of forests as close friends, the herbs, and how they do their healing work. The nectarine wording of blooms, the secrets spilling from stains of sap. So here, think of cut open tomatoes, muscled like the ventricles of a heart, or breadfruit halves, how they have a heave like lungs. How walnuts grow the way a cranium does with the same crumple of matter as its meat. The chrysanthemum's yellow center spot looking like eyes do to see. I am learning to read. Stem and fruit and root and seed. And my botanist friend has always asked me, well, how the plant make you feel? And I must sit with it in quiet, listening. I used to listen to my mother as well. Even became better at it in my adult years, could notice the bluing behind brief smiles, shortened by strain. Her days of keeping busy, the tangle of commitments, the begging eyes, the brunt of strange religions, worn, weary displays of disappointment. I listened to her complain and I offered hugs. I offered my prayers in private. I offered to video call her once a day. I listened. So here, think of the brightest red tomato, muscled like the ventricles of a heart, and how hers paused the pulse of the body, or breadfruit halves heaving like lungs, and my father does everything to revive her but cannot, how walnuts grow the way a cranium does with the same crumple of matter, where hers has closed down quietly, now from all that tired. The chrysanthemum's yellow center spot. She has been looking and longing for this light at the end of her tunneling time on this earth, and she is at peace now. I listen for my mother and hear silence in return. Instead, I hear my daughter's first words, the hum of the switched on stovetop at breakfast to boil water for cocoa tea, the tug of my shoelaces as I get ready for class. My husband typing on the keyboard across from the bed. I listen for the quiet ashes in my everyday. Everything she planted here is growing so well. She, all in the ground again as earth, living among the plant people, my close friends, I am learning to listen to. When it have patrols on the beaches and police in the forests, we can't write no songs about no flowers. When they quarry in on the mountains and nobody say nothing, water stop because they clogging up the rivers. My people are from the underside of leaves, the sequence of roots and the hymnals of trees, from a deeper tendency to wipe out all the memories, but we've been here. We talk through the wind and we dance on the water. We sprout with the earth and we rage with the fire. We so here right now and we've been here all along. We so here right now, we've been here, we've been here, we've been here. Thank you, everyone. It is now my absolute pleasure, honor, gratitude to introduce our next poet for this afternoon. None other but Rachel
Excuse
Long.
me, Ariel. I think I have a poem of you. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great.
Yeah, I translated a doctrine of signature to Dutch.
Oh, wow.
Just an excerpt. Signatuurleer. Ik luisterde ook naar mijn moeder. Werd er zelfs beter in naarmate ik ouder werd. Kon het blauw zien achter een kleine glimlach. Ingekort door spanning. Haar dagen van in de weer zijn, in de klit met verplichtingen. De knallende, smekende ogen. Het as van vreemde geloofsovertuigingen, versleten, vermoeid, vertoningen van teleurstelling. Ik luisterde naar haar klagen en ik bood haar knuffels aan. Ik bood mijn gebeden aan in privé. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kalumi. My paws are raised. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. All right, I will proceed in introducing Rachel. Rachel Long, a British poet, founded and ran Octavia Poetry Collective for Women of Color, which was housed at the South Bank Centre in London from 2015 to 2020. Her debut collection, My Darling from the Lions, Picador 2020 and Tin House 2021, was shortlisted for the Forward Prize for Best First Collection, big up, the Costa Book Award, the Rathbones Folio Prize, and the Sunday Times Young Writer of the Year Award. The US edition of My Darling from the Lions was named one of the 100 must-read books of 2021 by Time. Amazing. And I have a translation here for one of Rachel's poems into Spanish, into Espanol. Tu amor es una pequeña roca marrón. Caminas con él en el bolsillo. A veces lo tomas en tu puño. Solo estás esperando por una ventana. Put your hands together, your snaps, or whatever you're doing on your end for Rachel Long.
Ariel, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm so bad at basically any language that I couldn't even make out from one word, like what. Because I sent Gbenga a few, and I was like, wait, there must be one word that I could like link back to myself. Absolutely not. So I don't know what you just translated, but it sounded really good. I think I really need to get better at this. What an absolute privilege to be here with you all. Thank you, Gbenga. Thank you, everyone, so much. Yeah, as Ray betrayed, we were messaging in the break there. Yeah, just about like our thoughts and our feelings about the first half of this, which was all good, so it wasn't like you betrayed anything, Ray. But then I started thinking about, and I didn't choose what I wanted to read until yeah, the first half, just kind of to maybe like respond in some way. And I think, and when Gbenga said, like, does Rachel have a question? I was a bit like, I don't know, do I? But I think I did. I think I've always been very fascinated with like what might be the line for us as poets, as writers, between like the body and mind and the spirit. My mum brought us up that there was no line really. It was very like you could move through it very quickly. So if you had a dream, then you were in spirit world. If you walked through a wrong door, then something terrible was going to happen to you spiritually, even though your body had only passed through the door. And in my collection, I think I rejected it for a really long time, like all of that sort of like superstition and spirituality. And then I realized that how close to poetry it is, a sort of liminal space, or half liminal maybe. Anyway, this is called Mum's Snake. Firstly, Mum wouldn't like that I've called it her snake. It wasn't my snake. It was the snake she put on me. Every time Mum tells it, she rubs the back of her hand. Like a penny, she rubs the red-brown back of her hand. I had to shave it down to this, not a hair, she says. For years, she rubs the red-brown back of her hand. Hair is a crowning glory, a source not only of beauty, but power. Remember Samson? It can be taken, buried in the woods at night. Everything you came into this world with, all you were to achieve, the love you were meant for, trodden, rotting like that under the earth. Don't let any of your aunties touch your hair at a party. If one of them reaches out for you, run, come and find me. Lord, deliver me. My enemies wage war against me. You won't believe me. It will take an incredible leap of faith. My sister put a snake, a huge one, the kind that swallows lambs. What's that sort called? A python, yeah, or an anaconda maybe, but worse because it didn't belong to this realm, wasn't of the physical, you see. She put one of those on top of my head. I could feel it moving, the migraines, my God. They were cosmic. I couldn't stand the weight of it. I had to get it off. I couldn't get it off. I was back and forth from the church, sometimes 3 times a day, before work, after it, once you were in bed. The elders tried everything. The things I had to do, I cannot say. Mum's American sister, the one whose name will not be said in our house, the betrayal too great, ecstatic, dancing on a stage, ecstatic. At last, one old prophet from Nigeria heard me, said he'd seen something like this long ago. He said, let me speak to her. So I spoke to him. God bless him. He said, take clippers. The snake is using your hair like the grass. Cut the grass. He will be exposed. Had I gone to the doctors, of course they would have said I was crazy. Can you imagine? Excuse me, Dr. Mangwana, I can feel a snake on my head, a heavy snake, unless I shave my head. You would have spent your childhood visiting me in the Maudsley. So I took the clippers, gave them to cousin Reginald and said, take them. My husband won't understand, not being of our land. Take them. Help me. Mum's orb of a fro lays on the red and gold carpet. The clippers hum in Reginald's hand long after he's pressed off with her hair. Mum's American sister, the one whose name will not be said in our house, the betrayal too great, enraged, screaming into a mirror, enraged. Mum's bedroom, half chapel, half boudoir. It's a wig shop. Wigs hang from the bedposts, top corners of the mirror, tight curly wigs, boob-length wigs, red and black pom-poms, Jesus, unadorned by frame or glass, tacked to the wall above where Mom will later lay her clean shaven head to pray till her knees and elbows are sore. Thank you guys, you're beautiful. I also really loved when Ben was talking, he said at one point, and I wrote it down, but my writing is so messy and there were so many good things that I wrote so many things down that now it's like sort of on a slant. But I think he said something about, where is it? Like, oh, the freedom to be erotic, like the freedom to dream, the freedom to be erotic. And I think for a long time I was really kind of maybe almost like ashamed of that in my work. That would always kind of come out. Audre Lorde helped massively too, the uses of the erotic, but also that comment. So I'm going to read what I think is probably the closest I've ever written to a love poem. Usually mine are like actually fucked up love poems, but this is probably the closest to a love poem, called Eden. We slice Sundays in half, sometimes into 3 different days. He climbs all the way up this high white tower after work, or at midnight, or at 4 in the morning, and we won't sleep for talking with our hands, for learning or yearning, for wine. I prepare a cheese board, which forever goes untouched. We fall, finally, nap like lion and lamb in the long cream grass. Sometimes I am the lion, sometimes he is the lamb. We swap. We wake, stretch, consider dinner. He wants to cook for me. His grandmother's sauce simmers indelibly. We saunter around heaven, this 1-bedroom flat, following or leading the other room to room, hand in hand or hands on each other's shoulders. We laugh till we're not sure why, then laugh at that. The light up here is amazing. There is no tomorrow. Tulips grow and keep growing tall and purple. Our Sundays are the length of an arm over the edge of the world. Bed, bathtub, sofa, fucking and flopping over and over, a film, another. To settle, he doesn't need any of my blanket. 1 leg between his, neck getting a crick in his lap. I bear it. The windows are open, but the blinds are closed. The street is so far down below. It's just us here, apart from God in the roof conversion. He does not tell us off. He has given us his blessing, his anointing. We know from the cards he sent and the frog on the path, which we named Fortune. He can't hear me with the shower on. Would you like toast? Note slipped under the bathroom door. Yes, please. When he must leave for work, still have to work, and to collect his children, I mean, they're my children. He calls from the station. It's raining out here and the train's packed. Everyone's a prick. The hell is this? It's leaving Eden, I shrug. I wash up, flush the toilet. Once our dirty bedding is in the wash, I resume my seat on the right-hand side of the sofa to wait where I wait. Such a long wait for him to want to die a little bit, a lovely bit, up here again with me. Thank you guys very much. It is my great, great, great pleasure. Also because I know she's really lovely from me panic messaging, private messaging her in the chat, being like, shit, I should have checked in before. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Keiichi Nami Nomo, and I really, really hope that I've got that right. I said I have a shit Southeast London accent. I'm probably gonna fuck it up, much to my mother's shame as well. Sadly. Keiichi is a Nigerian poet and essayist. She was named a 2023 to 24 Fine Arts Work Centre Fellow and a finalist in the Narrative Magazine's 14th Annual Poetry Contest. Her work has been published in the Yale Review, Narrative Magazine, Boston Review, the Republic Journal, Poetry Northwest, Electric Literature, The Sun Magazine, and elsewhere. Where is there else? She holds an MFA in poetry from the New York University and has taught at NYU, Long Island University, Brooklyn, and the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. She was a 2024 LOTAD Black Atlantic resident in Ghana. Please make a warm welcome to Keiichi.
I have a
That's
poem.
Yeah, I was just going to read a poem of Keiichi in translation.
Oh, sorry.
Really?
See, because I can't speak any other languages. That wasn't in the thing. Sorry, Gbenga.
Don't worry. I hope you like it. Okay. Dialecto. Mi boca es la línea de falla, pre-lenguaje. Dedos en mi lengua cortada, el tiempo, la boca terriblemente abierta en el enjambre de recuerdos. Diablos. Esta música espinosa que hacen las bocas. En la repetición, línea de lenguas. Una manera de decir tenemos historia muy, muy atrás. Roma deshecha. Keiichi.
Thank you so much, yes. First, I'd like to say it's a pleasure to get to hear you read again. I hope I'm not mistaken that I heard you read in 2022 in Queens. So it's such an honor to get to hear you read again. But also, thanks, Rachel, for that beautiful, beautiful introduction. I don't know, I'm in my feelings about that. So yeah, it's an honor to be reading with this beautiful cast of poets. But I'll just sort of like to say a few things about why it is that I'm drawn to the subject matter of violence in my poetry. For me, it sort of begins with thinking about how speech is an evolutionary act, an instinct. And so I sort of think about how what it is that we name is how we make ourselves, right? And so language becomes a way for me to think about re-articulating and looking at place with, as much honesty as one can manage, but also as much tenderness as one can manage, right? And so it's sort of, I'm never not thinking about place, and for me, place is the Delta, the southern regions of Nigeria where I grew up. Spent most of about 3 decades of my life, give or take, in the Delta, and how the activities of big oil has, through the years, and in the ways that capital can insist on its own self, begun to sort of create a kind of de-evolutionary state, right? And I think about how language can become a way to respond, what sort of evolutionary language is possible to respond to that de-evolutionary state with. I'm thinking here about how the poet Ben Lerner, the poet and novelist Ben Lerner, says that sometimes language speaks us and it's not, the other way around. And so, in that way, I'm interested in, self-mythologizing or the poetry as self-mythology. But also in a place like that, what sort of heroes are possible, and how like a hero in a place that was self-appointed hero in a place like that might think about
what transgression is, what absolution is. And I'm just interested in how the persona poem sort of feeds this idea. So I'm going to start by reading a persona poem, loosely based on a real life self-appointed hero in the place of my birth. But yeah. I am going to say ahead of time that because I'm reading from my laptop, I will not be able to see reactions, and I feel like I'm going to lose that part is just seeing you guys as I read. But yeah, I'm going to sound a little bit like an automatron because I'm not seeing people. But yeah, here goes. The autobiography of Boileau. Misbegotten and necessary, my Eden, its fall, but first Edenness. Aerial lit by the bulbs in their masts, mist and rig light, I was born here, touched my first drill bit before I grew teeth, felt oil and knew it would be my ruin, my heart. What a pipeline leaks comes close to blood rust. Once you have seen it burn through taxidermy, thin skin, the town where asked to join in the dream of birds, a nearby oil field exploding. You learn some trees burn fast, the loss of others slow, visible, show rot only by their crack patterns. Someone you love keeps trying to show you how to love what is left of a land. There are ways, they insist, to wait for the green sprout, the first herbs. But it's like saying a god is anything, loose fudge of cloud flung back toward sky, or every third bird. Name me instead for the bricks I have thrown into houses, the caliber I shot through a crowd, once lodged in a woman's heart. In the holding pattern of worship, I took a blowtorch and ran through the streets mad to outrun its finality. Now I take it. The dream that ends with a raisin field and begins with this lime bush. In the year a rainmaker hacked a weaker zone to cure the dead field, every swamp city between hell and Atlantis ready to bet a god or hero, misbegotten and necessary, I was born on a wet night, born with a heart shaped by Trinity, broken bones, bottlecock shuttles and gunfire. So now, understand this. The day arrives daily. A field all our lives marks the grace and border of paradise until it does not. See this atlas of flat clouds. Here, breathe this long thin air and what it makes, a boy. Gunfire play and the sun dogs run wild in the dust. I kiss the gun, laugh at the mothers, their fright and the bile of fathers. No absolution for what they call me, little vandal. No street markets to heaven's gate on the day I die. Instead, give me a garden in which I grow old, and Godfather crawl a cornfield to God. I'll be reading two more poems, one a bit long and another quite short. Gorilla's Nocturne. The morning after we part, I lose sleep. In the haze, I go back and forth, a life with or without organs. I wake with desire, my sorrowing. From habit, I check what is left of life. The nosebleed confirms the fear of sickness is sickness. The fear of fear is fear. For anyone not busy dying, everything is subject to Newtonian abstractions. A life with hands is a life where my hands extend to reach finally emptiness. Absence is the known parabola, cover field mastered in childhood, running the perimeters. I sheave new absence to survive, make each one a pseudo cloud for future sleep. I enter the fever dream once. The river green with algae was no longer ours. In the killing fields of repeated dreams, like a young Greek god, I renounced stars, asked them to stop spilling their scintilla into day. I lost my mind. The night we found a deserted church, we made a hideout, the bad a cappella of cricket around us, shadow play between the abandoned priest's chalice and gas lamps in low light, a study in longing. We learned how a body asks to make sing flesh or brief paradises of another between night and day. I was alive. The hours that passed between us were short-lived. I can't see your faces, so I don't know, but thank you so much. Yeah, the final poem of reading, Sea Talk. You leave for the war in the invisible chapel, time touched by sea hands, turns the old war cannons of your bedhouse, their colonial color, to rust, like how the sea must blew lovers in parting. The boats recede only after you whisper to their wood, the sea in me has fallen for the sea in you, and still a boy, you are given the task of boys. What makes you cradle a rifle tight? When the men laugh, their sea laugh, you laugh too. In the mist, did you call them brothers the first time you entered the still dark village to burn its Pentecost of wood churches and the house, the first pilage that named you? What you learned to bury, the size of a hole, truths, watery creeks with your dead. In that mist, someone asking, what brought you to war? How long? How many? Who dreamed of your return? Sea talk all day. The body's in you, a whirlpool with the instinct of sand, in sleep, before the breathing stopped to pardon your hands. How honest did the body become? So pretty much it's my honor to introduce the next poet who will read. And I also have the honor of translating this poet's poem to my native language, Kwale, Ukwani for people who know. So yeah, I just sort of read their bio and then get into it. So Kopano Maroga, I hope I'm saying the name right, is a South African performance artist, writer, educator, and cultural worker. Maroga is currently based in Belgium. Their debut poetry collection, Jesus Thesis and Other Critical Fabulations, was released in 2020 and shortlisted for the National Institute for the Humanities and Social Sciences Award for Best Fiction Poetry and translated into German. They were a co-founding director of Anybo Design and a curator and dramaturg in Ghent, Belgium from 2019 until 2023, and is now pursuing a PhD through the Royal Institute for Theatre, Cinema, and Sounds in Brussels, Belgium. So yeah, here goes Maroga's poem, At Swim Two Boys. Ebewe gummili, mwokolobia nebe. Kalife lolo, nchonik mmali, mbochi ututu, mili zweni, mbochi ututu, igidenum, esui dike uzo mili zwebini. Mesuzo, moi, dike shio tego, mili zweni. That's about it. I hope my mom never gets to watch this and hear what I just did, because I'm pretty certain that I modeled the thing. But that's about it. It's a pleasure to welcome. Let me be sure I'm getting the name right. It's a pleasure to welcome. I need to say it correctly, so give me a few minutes. Kopano. So here goes.
Oh, thank you, Kechi. That was fantastic. That was beautiful. I'm so appreciative. Can everybody hear me okay? Because my connection is doing some wild things. Okay, fantastic. Let's jump in. Though much is known about the early childhood of Jesus of Nazareth and his ministry from his late 20s, there are no historical documents that help us divine with certainty just where and what our dear Lord and Savior was up to between the ages of 12 and 29, the lost years of Jesus. Some scholars posit that it was most probable that he was apprenticing with his father Joseph as a carpenter. In the late medieval period, there appeared Arthurian legends that the young Jesus had been in Britain. In the 19th and 20th centuries, theories began to emerge that Jesus had visited Kashmir instead, where had studied with the Essenes in the Judea desert. And yet, there exists another theory for how Jesus spent those years. Jesus was a faggot. Jesus liked it rough. Jesus was a masochist. Jesus liked whips and chains, sometimes nails. Jesus had a safe word. No one remembers it. No one dares try. Jesus was femme. Jesus had wrists so limp they had to nail them straight. Send him to conversion therapy. Jesus didn't make it. Jesus' mother wept. Jesus' mother wept. Jesus' mother wept. Jesus was a drag queen. Jesus served face for the gods. Jesus had a drag name. Jesus had many drag names. Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Nissi, Jehovah Shamlom, Prince of Penises, Prince in Pieces. Jesus was a power bottom. Jesus had daddy issues. Jesus was a daddy. Jesus was an otter. Jesus was a cum slut. A Holy Ghost covered in semen. Jesus let so many men inside of him, he became an ocean, his lovers, fishers of men. Jesus didn't know how to make boundaries. Jesus practiced ethical polyamory. He gave until there was nothing left of him, and on the day he disappeared, his body became a tomb, and Jesus wept. God, Jesus wept. That's Jesus' thesis. And now I'm going to be reading something new. Well, newish. This is the alphabet after Brett Charles Sealer's alphabet. A is for the phantom breath before the in he's a fag. B is for the blade. C is for the cut. D is for the desk under which I used the blade to cut. E is for errant fag, which remains the best Twitter handle of 2020. F is for G is for God, duh. H is for God's hairy, holy hole. I is for inside. J is for just keep going. K is for K-U-N-T, cunt. L is for limp. M is for moan. N is for nigger with a hard R. The way you said it and looked me in the eye like a crack in a wall, like a foreshadowing, like a shadow. O is for Oprah. P is for please don't leave. Q is the lines I cross just to make it to you. R is for rush. S is for stop, please. Time is for time heals. U is for have you spoken to your parents? V is very, very extraordinary. W is for worry and ring and wrench. X is for the back of the Falcon Studios magazine that I found in the kids section of Inclusive Books with the alabaster boys and their sapphire eyes and their ruby lips and their jasper cocks hard and straight as a pulse time of death. Y is too easy. Z is for Liza and Catherine Zeta and those zebras we saw in the game reserve before everything turned to shit. Or was that after? Was there ever everything? Or was it just something to see through, to ride out, to swim good, to pray like a zealot for some god to have mercy on a black kid with a fury for a mother and a soft sad for a dad and a name meant to bridge the way between all the rage and all the grief and 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 all the grief and all the rage and all the rage and all the grief and all the grief and all the rage and the grief and rage and grief and rage Next poem is a translation. Thank you, Gbenga, for the invitation to translate. Xhosa is my mother's language, so my fluency is wibbly wobbly. So Koleka, please don't judge me. I tried, sister, I tried. This is Imeko. Ndiyawuthanda umzimba wami kodwa nokunyamalala. Ukuba iquid-dysmorphia yaba yintsomo, mhlawumbi besinajika kwimvula xa sisifa. Inxeba ye-polyphony inganakwenzeka esibhakabhakeni. Awukho ndawo. Ubutyebi balahleka kudala kudala. And the final poem. I am. Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. Jesus, Yeshua, first begotten, Revelations chapter 1, verse 5, Collins Kosa, April 2020, Sibusiso Amos, the 29th of March 2020, Desire of Nations, Haggai chapter 2, verse 7, Good Shepherd, John chapter 10, verse 11, Uyinenim Retiana, 29th of August 2020, Emmanuel, Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, Mariel Franco, the 14th of March 2018, Lamb of God, John chapter 1, verse 29, Gift of God, 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 15, Mauda Shauri, the 17th of May 2018, Man of Sorrows, Isaiah chapter 53, verse 3, Sandra Bland, the 13th of September 2015, Morning Star Revelations chapter 22, verse 16, Sikosipi Bazuka Radebe, the 22nd of March 2016, Light of the World, John chapter 8, verse 12, Petrus Michels, the 27th of March 2020, Narembela, the 5th of January 2020, Only Begotten Son, John chapter 1, verse 18, George Floyd, the 25th of May 2020, Rose of Sharon, Song of Songs chapter 2, verse 1, Horn of Salvation, Luke chapter 1, verse 69, Adil, the 10th of April 2020, Lorena Extravaganza, the 5th of December 2012, Foundation, Isaiah chapter 28, verse 16, Resurrection, John chapter 11, 25, Nenoke, the 16th of August 2012, Sacrifice, Ephesians chapter 5, verse 2, Savior, 2 Samuels 22:47, Jehovah Jireh, my provider, Jehovah Nisi, Lord, you reign in victory, Jehovah Shalom, my Prince of Peace, my Prince in Peace is one. Where do we begin? Where do we begin? I end where my gender begins. In 1652, with a boat, with many boats, with many, many ghosts. We begin where, in the languages of my mother's and father's tongues, there's no pronoun for he or she, only you, only them, only me. Where do we begin? Where do we begin? In the languages of my mother's and father's tongues, we call people by their names. We do not call people by the secret flower we imagine may or may not be blooming between their thighs. Where do we begin? Where do we begin? In the land of my mother's and father's tongues, we have the 4th highest rate of femicide in the world. Where do we begin? Where do we begin? In the country of my mother's and father's tongues, we have lost so much and there is no one to count the bodies. Where do we begin? Where do we begin? In the country of my mother's and father's tongues, there is a burning roof and no one to sing the smoke to sleep. Where do we begin? Where do we begin? 2. In the new world, my tongue is pink and my name is King. Someone tells me they love me, and I don't need to unravel myself to understand which me they love. The black me, the pink me, the red me whose bleeding is not yet finished. Let it be known, there are no words lonely enough for the estrangement of a body from its people. Let it be known. We search for the words anyway. We find ways to reconcile our duplicity, twice marked, twice erased, conspicuous by our absence. Crown me, king of a conquered people, king of a lonely people, king of a people so tired and holy. From atop a hill somewhere, the pink sun is rising, and all the black children are ash by noon. 3. Story time. At my first and last pride, a white man told me and my black queer femme and trans friends that we and our black and trans inclusive signs made him feel excluded. How lucky. to have ever felt part of anything. How lucky to come from somewhere and feel like everywhere is a place for you to belong. How lucky. 4, dear God, forgive me my grief that is a river that runs into a sea of ancestral weeping. Dear God, forgive me my bones and their unrest. I come from a people who have lain centuries long unburied. Dear God, forgive me. I am trying my best. I was born into a pink sunset under a rainbow sky in a bleeding country on a continent of bones in the wake of a world drowning in birth water. I was crowned king of the touch-hungry city. It's been so long. Thank you so much.
Wow. Come on now. Come on now, Copano. All righty. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. It's been a poetry revival. On that note, we're going to go for a 2-minute intermission. 2 minute, nothing less, nothing more. 2-minute intermission, stand up, stretch. And when we're back, we're going to take it to the finish line. Okay? 2 minutes. I'll see you in 2 minutes.
Okay, a second. I just want to hear it too. Just needed to hear it. Damn.
All right, righty. We're back to the Poetry Communion. In case you're just joining us, this is Abundance, a global Black poetry performance. We have poets from all over the world reading in multiple languages, the language of their ancestors, the languages imposed upon them by history, and in translation as a practice of intimacy. We've had the first half of the reading. which is part of the Furious Flower Poetry Conference 2024. It's a historic once-in-a-decade gathering of Black poets, Black voices, Black essences, Black creators from all over the world. And that is happening this very week. And now we're going to continue with the reading. Alrighty, so let's get together and continue with our reading. I'm just going to wait for my panelists to join us, and then I'm going to introduce the next guest. And we're gonna go. It's gonna happen so fast with so much fire. We're having such a compelling time. Alrighty, waiting for a few people to join us, and then we can get back to the business of reading poems. Oh my goodness. That first session was mind-blowing, and now we're gonna do it again. We are gonna do it again. The last half of the lineup is, oh my God, you're not gonna believe this. Alrighty, and now I have the great pleasure of introducing Reina Liao. I hope I'm not killing that name. I try really hard, forgive me. Reina Liao is a best-selling poet, artist, educator. She publishes her writing on an Instagram page where she has over 600,000 followers. She's a national voice for Afro-Brazilian culture and heritage in Brazil. Her first book of poetry was published by Editora Planeta in 2017. That same press brought together 15 poets from Brazil. In 2029, she released a second book, and now she's writing a third book. Our work reflects on self-love, healing, ancestry, mental health, connections, diasporic resistance, cultural heritage, and more. She is the founder of the Odara English School for Black People, an online Afro-reference English school for the Black population in Brazil. And now I'm going to read a short excerpt of Reina's poem in Yoruba, the language of my ancestors and the language of my intimacy. It's a short one. Mo ní kẹ́ pè mí ní ẹni àyàsọ́tọ̀, ẹni rárá. Mo ní kẹ́ pè mí ní ẹni mímọ́, ẹni kò rí bẹ́ẹ̀. Ẹ wò mí o, lójú yín mo dòrìṣà iyọ̀, lójú yín mo dòrìṣà ibú. Màmá wa Ẹyẹmọjà, ẹ fi ọlá fún àwọn obìnrin tí wọ́n ń wọ inú ibú àti òkun ayé lọ, tí wọ́n ń padà jáde wá pẹ̀lú ìtàn tuntun, orin tuntun, àtúnbí tuntun, àti èdè tuntun. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome this marvelous poet.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm a bit nervous too. I have a big poem here with a lot of poems of mine, so I ask for permission from everyone's ancestors. Agô, and I will begin. Yami o yamo pre, yami o yamo pre o, yami o yamo pre, yami o yamo pre o. Orimopwe, 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 oriapere, minha cabeça seja doce, minha cabeça seja doce e grandiosa, may our ori walk with kings and queens, não há preta no mundo que ande sozinha, Laroye Mojubá é Exu quem me guia, você quer me ver desistir, você quer me ver cair, mas eu sou filha de Oiá, eu sou filha de Oiá, eu sou. I will not be a black woman who says no to love. I will not be a black woman destined for sadness. I will not be a black woman defined by my traumas. I will not deny the good paths. I challenge pain. I write my own destiny. Exu is with me at life's crossroads, saying, you are full of life. Hoje eu agradeço, Maria Padilha me deu tudo que eu mereço, Laroye Exu, Laroye Pombogira, eu sou filha de Oiá, eu sou filha de Oiá, eu sou. I'm Oiá's daughter, I am a daughter of the storm and the winds, I am the tempest that defies the world's current. Minha voz é um estrondo e vale a pena ser ouvida, e meu corpo também fala, é em mim que está a saída, que hoje eu reconheço até na fraqueza um motivo para a revolução. Hoje serei minha própria cura, hoje não terei vergonha, hoje não vou esperar que me salvem. And if there be no one to tell me I am divine, may I become the goddess of my own salty tides. A depressão pode até me fazer visita, mas não pode me chamar de lar. Hoje não estarei no olho do furacão, hoje serei o furacão. Hoje eu estou viva, hoje eu escolhi estar viva. Hoje eu estou viva, hoje eu estou viva. Today I'm alive, today I'm alive, today I'm alive, today I am alive. And maybe seeing me here alive, others might find a reason to choose life as well. Today I am alive, today I am alive, today I am alive. Eu quero ser uma boa casa para mim, eu sou uma boa casa para mim. People like us are songs that never stop. People like us keep shining, casting sunlight beneath our steps. Power never leaves us, we are enchantments, we are an entire forest. Ogum ye moye, Ogum ye moye. Se Ogum vive, eu também posso viver. Ogum me ensina a cessar as guerras internas, rasgo e abro caminhos, mas eu sou filha de Ogum, eu sou. Mas eu sou filha de Ogum, eu sou. Sou uma mulher que gosta muito de dançar, mas que poucas vezes foi convidada para um bom samba, desses que fazem suar os olhos e ficar rouca. Eu estou falando da melodia de dentro, o fora eu resolvo bem. Sou uma mulher que atravessa pontes feitas de água, nem sempre aprendo a nadar, mas nunca esqueço o nome do rio, nem o caminho até lá. I am a woman who laughs fiercely. You can hear my laughter from another town. Don't even think of questioning. It's really me who every night looks in the mirror and keeps laughing, 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 astonished by my own power. Um ancestral me contou, é preciso se alumiar primeiro. Foi um erro brilhar tantas vezes para iluminar escuridões que não eram suas, mas isso te fez virar galáxia. Desde pequena você transforma caos em estrelas. E se a vida é queda livre, prepara o chão com banhos, búzios, velas, mãos entrelaçadas. Deixa um bilhete dizendo, eu já estive aqui e retornei. I always know the way back to where I belong. I'm not alone, and neither are you. And to honor those who came before, I will never give up on myself. Dancing with my healing, writing with water and poetry. Welcome to my flaws and contradictions. I am a beautiful, messy poem, still trying to figure out the mysteries of the sea. Aprendi com Igeoma, o Mebinio, que bênção ser assim tão poderosa. What a blessing it's to be this powerful. Se me oferecerem tropeço, viro pedra. Se me oferecerem conexão, viro mel. Faço festa que leva o meu nome e o de vocês. Tenho um corpo lua cheia, passeio na eletricidade do querer. Meu furacão se arrepia com afeto e querência. Me chama para ir num samba amanhã. Me chama para dançar Jorge Ben no meio da sala. Me chama para antecipar o carnaval no peito. Abundância e fartura dizem muito sobre nós. Every women living inside me are joyful. Be careful, because I'm reading people who resemble me. The world has failed to extinguish my flame. We are poets, beautiful. We breathe gold into the future we desire. Nós somos a contramão do mundo, nós apostamos as fichas em nossos sonhos absurdos e prosperamos porque sabemos dizer: vem reinar comigo. Thank you, Maya Angelou, because still I rise for living poets such as Luz Ribeiro, Mel Duarte, Cidinha da Silva, Conceição Evaristo, Lívia Natália, Eliana Alves Cruz, Kimani, Bianca Santana, Tawane Teodoro, Gênesis, Rainha do Verso, Gabi Niarai, Nega Faia, Naruna, Aline Anaia, Jennifer Nascimento, Lara Nunes, Poliana Érica, Dona Edith, I'm not alone and neither are you. I'm not alone and neither are you. I'm not alone and neither are you. Me lembro de Suede Nunes. Povoada, quem falou que eu ando só? Nessa terra, nesse chão de meu Deus, sou uma, mas não sou só. Mas eu sou filha de Oiá, eu sou. Eu sou filha de Oiá, eu sou. Seguirei banhando oceanos de palavras, molha quem molhar. My dreams are the wildest. We breathe gold into the future we desire. Oxum me ensina sobre as trocas justas. Oxum me enfeite dourado e me ajude a escorrer os desgastes para fora de mim. Oxum não permita que devorem a voz de meus desejos. Ieieu, ieieu, Oxum, ieieu. Iemanjá, lave os meus olhos, molhe os renascimentos de meus caminhos. Iemanjá, don't let me forget who I am. Iemanjá, don't let me forget who I am. Epamio, Odoiá. Epamio, Odoiá. Escrevo para vingar os anos que passei me odiando. Vingo também a tristeza de minha mãe e a morte de meu pai. Vingo os que fui e os que se foram. I write to take my revenge. I write to take my revenge. I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive. And if other poets rise and tell their stories, then I have fulfilled my ancestral mission. We are here to share our silent revolutions made while crying on the kitchen floor on a Tuesday night. Poetry was always there, so there we are. So there we are. Cultive futuro no seu corpo marcado, cultive futuro no seu corpo em desalinho. I'm the future, I'm the future, I'm alive. I'm alive, eparrei, oiá. Porque eu sou filha de Oiá, eu sou. Eparrei, oiá. Somos profundos demais para acabar. Somos profundos demais para acabar. I'm not alone, and neither are you. Thank you very much. And now, it's my honor to introduce the next poet, Plume Adeyumo. Plume Adeyumo, Netherlands, is a Nigerian-Dutch interdisciplinary writer and lucid dreamer. They publish poetry, create performance, and sound installations, sometimes in collaboration with the collective public relations, working with themes such as migratory grief, the grammar of the poor, and researching the role and reclamation of spirituality in queer lives. They understand language also as a place of struggle. In 2020, they were selected by NRC as one of the promising artists of the Lowlands. They worked for the International Literature Festival, Read My Words in Amsterdam as a programmer. And I have the Portuguese translation for their poem. Legado lírico, marcado na minha pele, todo este tempo, entre uma terra desolada, minha juventude e dias de velhice, eu só sigo adiante escrevendo, avançando lentamente, plantando o meu corpo.
Thank you so much. That's so special. And thank you for your performance. It makes me want to sing a song. even though I have the flu. So bear with me. Yeah, kwemio. Ye moya de wa ya wa. Ye moya de wa ya wa. Ye moya de wa riwo. Ye kwemio. Ye moya de wa ya wa. Ye moya de wa ya wa. Ye moya de wa riwo. Alejo. Every time a grown-up screams at a child, my belly hurts. While visiting my grandparents, I've been sick. They wrap 19 years of distance and worries around my sickbed. When visiting, someone else is emptying a room. When resting, someone else takes up another task. My nieces do the cooking and cleaning. The couches in the living room, temporarily the bed of my nephews. They are not giving the privilege of trial and error, of growing mistakes. My fever dream shows me similarities between different kinds of forced labor, taking shape, changing shape, from colonial into family structure. My astrologer says, you can only do what has been done to you. Ask yourself, what hurt have I swallowed? What hurt have I become? What hurt am I capable of? Why is our guest not eating? Grandma asks. Alejo arrives as a kick in my tummy. I ask my niece to translate for me. I know the reason my belly hurts. Mo reason. Inumi madu. Oya, explain. Grandmother's questions command. Every time a grown-up yells, my niece looks up at me. Every time abalaba, the word for adult, is bigger than big. It is similar to the word abara, which means power. Every time the greater power screams at a child, my niece laughs nervously. Omade translates literally to child has come, as though every child is always at the breach of arrival, of becoming. Every time the greater power screams at the one becoming, my stomach hurts. My niece laughs out loud as to alter my translation, creating a comic relief. But every comedian knows when you laugh before the punchline, you only increase the tension. Inumi madu. Duruke is both the word and the sound of the talking drum. Inu, similar to the word ori, head, in other words, seats of consciousness. Inu carries spiritual and metaphysical significance. Inumi, my innermost, madum, beaten. The space between head and feet, between heaven and earth, hurt. None of this is a true translation. None of the words, none of the hurt. This one is called I Pass by the Attenuation Well, and a shiver, a breath, a spirit runs through my spine and arrives at the tip of my tongue, as though my body remembered. To get on the canoe, the frog in the pit of my stomach commands me, but I get seasick. I feel him bob as I do on my way to the land of no beginnings, of no return. Where does meaning root? My frog asks. in language, in sound, in movement, in the rhythm between. All oceans have a connection, but mine sank. This is how I learned to speak. Baba. One shot without warning. Auntie's firstborn fell on her compound, on his to inherit. 8 years have passed. All the apostles, soul herders, and spiritualists left bucket filled. Auntie remains belly round in expectancy. Her siblings locked outside the guarded gates of her home. Her remaining children wrapped in soft collars, sealed and sent overseas. Their mother tongue exchanged for Russian and sparse life expectancy. What will remain of us, I ask. An ancestor answers, with time, loss only adds weight. Dat ik een sleutel had, geen deur. Een doos vol sleutels zonder huis. En toen op reis ging, zwaar van vragen, naar iemand ver weg zonder locatie. Het gemak waarmee de dingen ons vervagen, blijven voortbestaan in de kerk of op de schoolbanken. Of het ergste, er nog wel zijn, maar ons al lang niet meer verwachten. Lyrical legacy. Marked on my skin, all this time between a wasteland, my youth, and elderly days. I only get forward by writing, crawling, planting my body over paper into a desert, dry seeds on paper. No one else gets me out of bed because you do not ask me to leave my sick bed. Who will reason with these words? The dead might. The frown on my forehead will wilt. Grave grief carve into my skin. I have seen it on my mother's face. I have seen it in my grandmother's hands. I will read one more in Dutch. The title of the poem in English is It Took You a While to Change Your Name. Het duurde lang voordat je van naam veranderde. Bij jou beging ontsprong bij de ondertekening, de navelstreng verknipt, je lot overgeleverd. Zal ons begin zijn waarin ik je de toekomst indraag. Waarin ik jouw toekomst draag. Waar mijn begin ontbrak aan de juiste tongval in de taal, aan koorddansers op de navelstreng, aan hun wens om mij te dragen en een man uit de ring. Zal ons begin een naam hebben, vrijwillig gegeven. Dit is mijn vrijheidslied. Dit is ons ontstaansgebed. Dit is Robin Hood van de bestolen kinderen, die bewapend met zwaard en paard of noble birth, moeders wens bejaagt. Een naam die niet ontbonden hoeft, waarvan wij met onze eigen vingers de etymologie kunnen herleiden. Als archief, een handafdruk, dit minnetestament. Thank you. And I am honored to introduce the next poet, whose work I got to encounter in translation, together also with the work of Ariel John. It was a pleasure listening to you in translation. I will introduce Fodiso. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. Fodiso Modira, who is a poet and creative nonfiction writer from Botswana. She's the author of Speaking in Code, a chapbook selected by Kwame Deus and Chris Abani, and published by Akashic Books as part of the New Generation African Poets box set. She was awarded the President's Award in Contemporary Poetry, and her work has been commissioned by the Botswana Embassy in Switzerland. Fodiso has performed at the inauguration ceremony of the current president of Botswana. Her work is published or forthcoming on Ada magazine, Guernica Review, Brittle Paper, Lowy, Abowo, Africa, and elsewhere. In 2022, she was a resident poet at the Gaborone Art Residency Center and is currently a fellow at the Iowa International Writers Program. Please welcome this amazing poet.
Hello, guys. Thank you so much, Pelomi. My name is Podiso Mudira, and I'm actually honored to be here. The first poem that I'm going to share with you is in Setswana, and I just want to take this opportunity as well to thank Gbenga for with writing in my mother tongue. I think this is, I've never given myself permission to, and this is, it means a lot to me. I hope I get to write more in my language. So, sengwe, hora motho, sengwe. Fa ke tsamayang teng, tsela e ntse matsoke. Moalo wa go tswa fa go ya fale o tla o ntimelela. Bolo bone mogala wa lone o papetlilwe ke pelaelo. Ke tlhatlhanya ka poelo. Gore a mongwe o kile a feta fa a goroga. A bangwe ba kile ba kokotela tsela le lesweu e le monwana go supa ko go iwang. Ga gona yo molato. Tsela ke mashi selabe gongwe ke nna ka kgamelo e rile go khupiwa ka e wela. Ya pipinega go nna kgapetlana jaanong ke nna yo ka tsoopedi tse di senang boteng go ka tshwara sepe se se tshologang jaaka gore ke mang. Ke ne ke setse lentswe morago mme le ntimeletse. Ke ne ke reeditse pina ya Setswana. Ke tlhaetse go tlhaloganya. Jaanong ke eme mo marakanelong. Ke botsa ope yo fetang gore a ga lo a mponna Motswana wa sekei a feta fa. A ga lo tlogela ka pina e molodi wa yone o reng sengwe go ra motho thebe sengwe. A ga lo a bona kwa tsamaetseng teng. Lo seka lwa ntshega tlheng ke a lo kopa. Dikoko di setse di phaphaseditse diphuka ditlhareng. Badisa ba tlhatlhetse le dipudi. Lefifi le a atumela. Ke ka seke ke tshele. Fa nka lala tsatsi le lengwe bokgwelo. This next poem is called Girl. Hello. I'm a girl of many tongues and very few mouths. Lend me yours so I can show you the places I have been. When I was a little girl, my mother took me to a far away country, left me there to learn the black and white dance of another tongue and people. When I came back, I did not know which way to London by way of elaborate etiquette and pleasantries. To make my journey, I had to uproot a little forest out of my mouth to make way for the smooth faux lawn of the Queen's song. Already of age, everything new and unfamiliar, I got to work night and day. My name is, I am a girl. My name is, what is my new name? My father said Felicity, so there you go. Dumelang, ke bidiwa Felicity. I have lost too much on my way to this conversation to just tell you my improvised name, meant to oil my tongue so as to let me fit into the sin on my flight here. I am a girl. I am a girl. I am still a girl. Though 32 years have passed, though my father in his grave let a man herd cattle into his crawl for a name, still girl. Though I made my way here all by myself. This next poem that I'm reading from my chapbook, Speaking in Code. This is Inference, written after Safia El Hello's vocabulary. The Setswana word tlala means hunger. The Setswana word tlala means full. The little girl said, ours is a house of deprivation, or the little girl said, ours is a house full of absence. The girl knows hunger and the girl knows pretense. The Setswana word tatolo means denial. The Setswana word tatolo means obituary. Mapula says, here lies the man's denial. Mapula says, here lies the man's obituary. Mapula speaks of gaslighting and Mapula never gets justice. You could say buwa to mean speak. You could say buwa to mean slaughter. Mojadi says, Naga, speak for me. Mojadi says, Naga, slaughter for me. Mojadi is asking for advocacy, or Mojadi is asking for retribution. Lots account. I know I am a coward of a man, returning only now to the ruins of your heart's chambers. My eyes are a gaping thing, taking everything in. But you are not here, my love, save for your defiance monumented into a pillar of salt. I want to say I forgive you to mean I understand. For what mother doesn't look back at a home she built while penance eats at her feet, at her heels, saying, leave your house, leave your children. I watched the holy halo of birds circling your head while you turned. I'm sorry I wasn't that brave. Not enough to face the thing that would unmake us. Please, borrow me your God. I promise to tend to him like a lamb. He's blit my command. Maybe then he will let me in on where your soul rests. Maybe then I too will know rest from ruin. In another Bible story, there is no God hurling plagues for blessings. There is only the pheromone of another wafting richest furthest away from home. Or maybe there is a God and I'm not his chosen one. If you know not what whittles a man to bone, though he keeps returning to the line, you know not the beguiling ways of that other woman. She licks her lips. The animals are whipped into quick feet, and I fall beside her. Lightning strike. I don't know how much more time I have, but I have a short poem that'll be my last one, and this is Rahab in Red Lipstick. People think I was only mimicking penance. Like under normal circumstances, a woman like me would not be kind enough to be hospitable. I was doing what my mother taught me, but also I was doing what a girl's got to do. You know, a girl's got to eat, right? And men tend to want to provide, safety and other things. So when they asked, I obliged, risked being a before Christ Erisa Tisa, because they could have been bandits waiting to strike in the night, freeloaders just looking for a place to sleep with no grand mission, but I let them in, hid them under the flax drying on my roof, or between my soft Egyptian cotton sheets, or inside my mouth so they could shut up and not get a girl in trouble. And when morning came, I did not ask for much, just for my family to be looked upon with grace. And as always, the crimson, always the crimson, came to the rescue. And you wonder why I love my Ruby Woo Mac Lippy. Thank you very much. It brings me great pleasure to introduce the next reader. This is Charisma Price. Charisma Price is an American poet and an assistant professor in English at the Tulane University. A poet and screenwriter, she is the author of I'm Always So Serious by Sarabande Books, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, 2023, which was a New York Times Editor's Choice pick. Her words have appeared in publications including Poetry, Indiana Review, Academy of American Poets, Poem a Day series, and elsewhere. She is a Cave Canem Fellow, was awarded the 2020 J. Howard and Barbara M. J. Wood Prize for the Poetry Foundation, and is the 2023 winner of the Stanley Kunitz Memorial Prize for the American Poetry Review. She holds an MFA in poetry from New York University. I will be just reading a short translation of her poem in Setswana. The title, Setshwantsho sa me, morago ga ga Chen. Jaaka boitumelo, jaaka go galaotega ga seletso, se tsereng boemo jwa tlhobolo ya ga malome, jaaka go bina e go dirang fa e tsholeletsa monna wa go motlosa, jaaka modumo wa dipilisi a tleng tsa ga rre, go dira maoto a tshupa masole a go ntsifala, jaaka nna, ke akanya gore sengwe se ka nna boitshepo, jaaka kolobe, jaaka leboko le le sa umakeng lefoko, ntate, kana metsi, kana go nwela. Everyone, Charisma Prize.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay? Oh my God, thank you so much. I've never heard my work translated. So thank you. It's so lovely to be here with everybody. Thank you, Gbenga. Yeah, it's great to see you again. Gbenga and I went to NYU together. So I'm gonna read a couple poems. Like Catchy, I'm reading from my computer. So I might see some of your faces, I might not. Either way, all of you, your poems are wonderful. So I'm going to read the poem that Fodiso just read. It's called Self-Portrait, and it's after the poet Chen Chen. Self-Portrait. As happiness, as the wailing tambourine that replaced my uncle's gun, as the dancing it does when he waves it at the man who cut him off, as the rattle of pills in my father's hands to slow the multiplying cells, as me thinking something can be holy, as a pig, as a poem that doesn't mention the word father or water or drowned, as a lie as red as a crow's mouth, as a streetlight whose bulb never breaks, as a mother who has a child who's allowed to be nothing more than their age, as weeknight curfew, as reparations, as a new car, as a down payment, as the bay leaf inside the pot of red beans boiling on Mardi Gras Day, as a Zulu coconut, as something so dark you have no other option but to call it precious, as a sibling, as a rotten tooth, as an aunt who has warmed the leftovers of our family before sundown, as whatever's left of my skeleton after the family pet has sucked the sorrow from every bit of my marrow. So that's the first poem. The next poem, thanks. I try to, when I learn a new word, I try to include it in the poems that I write. So it's in the title. I learned the word sempiternal, and it just means eternal. So that's extra. Eternal's in it, but okay. It's called for the context of this poem, I don't say it in the poem, but I'm from New Orleans, so this is a poem about New Orleans. One of the nicknames of it is the Crescent City. So the poem is called Sempiternal to the Future of a Crescent City, and it ends with a variation of a line by Frank O'Hara. Again, we are not simple. Say, it is a privilege to see our city this way. A bowl tuned to the sound of singing hands. The city that refuses to run from the mouth that will unmake it. Say, for right now, the towels are still, and above us, life grows from wine. Say, we will water it. Our mouth is the God that transcribes the drowning. Who's been spoken for? Who keeps on the light? Who owns the door that holds a hole as small and significant as the prey of a meadowhawk? We can see them. Trying to live is such a practice. Not far ahead, the swiftest of men will sprint on the painted field. A body knocks another. They cannot look back from the future after their stiffness causes surgeons to hungrily split their skull like swollen peaches. Tell us what to name our future. Have we taken from ourselves? What have we denied our teeth? Because we are speaking, the future turns its head like a misbehaved witness. Look back at us. We no longer have to lie to each other to be immediate. Thank you. This one is called. So earlier when I had asked Ben a question, I felt that most of my New Orleans poems and the poems that I wrote about home were written while I was living in New York. So for a while when I moved back home, I was like, oh no, I feel like I can't write a poem. So the name of this poem is called I wrote all my good poems in New York, but it's about the South. It takes place in New Orleans and Oxford, Mississippi. And this is for my friend Maurice, who is the person I'm speaking to in the poem. So I wrote all my good poems in New York. I tell you as we walk the trail in Oxford, surrounded by the trees I don't have names for. They hang over us like unpredictability, like life. I don't have a name for this, but I've tried calling it several things. Limbo, an unnestling into a familiar strangeness, unpaved streets. I'm afraid my hands work better in the cold. I mean, I think this is how destruction starts. You return. You're non-adaptable, harder to move. The ground sinks. The water rises. I think too much of the fields. Write enough elegies to be the rabbits trespassing them. I mean, we've all once seen what we think shouldn't be there. A weapon shadow that turns out to be the refrigerator, a shirt hanging from the door, the toilet in its same spot gurgling like a victim, so fear swollen, it's real. I love where I'm from. Religiously hunker in the belly of the tub during rain-fueled summers like a stowaway. It took 5 hours to get here. We should have switched drivers when the accents changed, talked about what soothes our mothers. Blood is such a flimsy marker of kinship. The highway was a spine leading the way to the borrowed brain of the house we visit like an earworm. The cicadas call us from the noise we have no name for. We know things are wrong. We've listened too much. The land, like us, will one day be gone. Right now, let's pull the black card on nature. We deserve to be here. We cut the horse tail like troubled siblings, construct our own names, unchristen the smooth-barked crepe myrtles. Damnful clergymen. Look at us. Once before, we trusted poisonous things because of their beauty. Angel trumpets, the stones of cherries, ourselves. So I am going to read 2 more poems. This is the shorter one. It's called Duplex. It's a so if some people are unfamiliar, the poet Jericho Brown created a form called a duplex, which is like a mixture of it's like 3 things he mixed. He mixed like a ghazal, I think the blues and a sonnet. So essentially what you will hear is that the first line and the last line are the same. And with each stanza, you'll hear repetition throughout. Like they're couplets that stand alone, but the second line of the first couplet will start the next line of the next couplet. So it's just repetition. Duplex after Jericho Brown. I showed my cousins I loved them by learning how to spell every one of their names. My Black nation learns how to spell the names of our kin renamed emergency, threat. New Orleans, please. There's threat of emergency, a violence against where Black people sleep. My most self-inflicting violence, lack of sleep. I pray with the meat of my anger. I should gut my anger, this mold from my house. I have a bad habit of always thinking. I have a bad habit. I always think loving someone means that I know them. Isn't it fun to love someone you don't know? I showed my cousins I loved them by learning. And this last poem, it is, I wish you could see it. Think of like an arrow, like a sideways triangle. Let me see, gotta get the lines out. Okay, I got it. So this is called My Phone Autocorrects Nigga Tonight. Night meaning the nighttime. My nights play cousin to their mother's favorite kettles. My nights won't consume their reflections, so they pour milk in their coffee. My nights never rest, so they sing their shadows to sleep. Sometimes they don't remember any words. My nights have frogs stuck in their throats. No light soul, every bit of pain. My nights all Louis Armstrong minus a trumpet, and my nights play chicken with the train. My nights both shoe and polish, both Sambo and Bruce Leroy. We all little pretty medallions on our grandmother's nightstands. My nights are mistaken for other nights that bear no resemblance. I saw the sinew of the oldest knight in the neighborhood on the floor, his Saint pendant missing. All the small down-feathered knights scatter from the groan of pig sirens. My nights don't know their history. My nights are pecans without the trees that grow them. My nights instruct all the people in their head to weep. My nights hate the firefly cutting their darkness. My night, did you see them? They just walked right past us and didn't even speak. My nights are ordinary, wear ruffled socks, have the best belts. My nights don't always go to church, but my nights are lambs worthy of the morning. My nights are revised constitutions, crypt keepers. My nights are a congregation of alligators on a rompous bayou. My nights hiss into themselves. No one hears. Their blood rolls its eyes. My nights chew gum and sunflower seeds. My nights eat pork. My nights get the itis and slur their speech. My nights protest protests. The government watches. My nights live in Brazil, Botswana, the Congo, Cuba, DR, France, Grenada, Greece, Honduras, Ireland, Liberia, Lithuania, Nigeria, Venezuela, Zimbabwe. My nights live in America to remind you of me. Some people think my nights are better with their eyes closed, but my nights have beautiful corneas. My nights wash clothes that don't belong to them and won't look their bosses in the eye. My nights know necessity. My nights oblige. When my nights die, I wash them on my kitchen table. After my nights are washed, I throw away the table. My nights have names. My nights smell of sage. My nights smell of the muddy rivers they will never swim in again. Thank you. So, now that part is over. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Julian Knox. I hope I'm saying the last name right. And after my introduction, Ariel will read an excerpt of Julian's poem translated into Trinidadian Creole. So, Julian Knox is a British filmmaker, interdisciplinary poet, and visual artist who explores themes of inheritance, loss, and belonging as he crosses the boundaries between written word, music, and visual art. He uses his personal history as a prism to deconstruct dominant perspectives on African art, history, and culture, and is influenced by Edward Glissant, Christina Sharp, and Barry Jenkins. His first solo institutional exhibition, Chorus in Rememory of Flight, 2023, premiered at The Curve, Barbican.
So a translation of Julian Knox's poem, I apologize, In Praise of Still Boys into Trinidadian Creole. Soft boy children, full up of water, for donkey years living up on cliffs where you see them there, studying trouble in the water. Them fellas swimming with fire, belly in hand for new lingo, studying how they make up, what keep them how they is, pelt their frame off the big rock, ride out the wave like a blue horse on 2 foot. It have plenty ways to mash up this obia. Presenting Julia Knox.
Thank you so much. That sounds sick. I appreciate that. I'm so full, like with everything that you guys have read. So beautiful. Um, I'm gonna read a poem called Creole, and basically I came across this essay I was reading about how the Creole name from for Sierra Leone's Creole came about. And apparently it's a Yoruba people named us. And apparently it says Akiriyo, we go about aimlessly, full, satisfied. I don't know how true it is, but I haven't looked it up because I really like that idea of we go about aimlessly, full, and satisfied. Um, so yeah, this is the poem. Creole. To be Creole, to be Black, to be African is to know life is full of impossible. Unicorns in the rainforest, the sketch of an ocean. We came here by the order of lost clocks to kickstart time before Africa was another world. To be Creole, to be Black, to be African is another place before us. Children missing from wombs, stories, mouths keeping wool, a place where the sun empties itself over the black of bodies. To be Creole is to know history is a sliced violence. To be Black is to know history is a sliced violence. To be African is to know history is a sliced violence. On the tip of a Yoruba tongue, Akiri, your aimless yet satisfied wanderers to be born dotted around the blue, mist-moving lips recoiling from swords, bullets, cannon fodder to make your house in a nation unclear. To be Creole, to be Black, to be African is to be boundless. Fragment of their Africa, permanent shape in the Atlantic's belly, waiting to spill their ghost, morning identity, a hard freedom. A new world with Black of the ancient. There will be no fire bringing us back. We invent beginnings anyways. I plant a seed to lift a death, a killing, a birth. To be Creole is to be a clamor in the revolution. To be Black is to be a clamor in the revolution. To be African is to be a clamor in the revolution. Shaping time, dreaming inside a strange thing. They blind our past, and we shape a garden with our eyes. That's the first one. I'm gonna read the poem that Ariel read. Um, and I'm gonna read it in English. I wish I'd have written it in Creole. But yeah, and it's after a film that I made. So it's called Still Boys Filled with Water. Still boys filled with water have lived on cliffs too long to learn the dangers of what waters bring. These boys swim with flames, hungry for new language. They've studied their borders, the things holding them, a place where the land comes into the sky, only few places left to bruise their knees. They dipped off the rock, rode the waves on a two-legged blue horse. There are several ways to escape this spell. Some will retire whilst painting clouds, some will bury the sea themselves, and some sagged in dreams, costing people the land they leave behind against shoulders of water. Those with fuel oil burn the shoreline. Um, I'm in the blue in the water, so I guess I might as well just continue that theme. So this is Blue Ocean. The first time I saw the ocean through the window of a plane, I wonder how it could hold all those past black bodies, the sky, a futureless spectacle, this new middle passage, moving us to sobbing, this place, a sacrament deferred singing. You are what's left of us. You are what's left of us. I said, you are what's left of us. A hymn of dead doves, the ocean, a cracked chandelier where the dead praise their graves. Other days, I wear the blue flood on my shoulders, thinking too much on things people would love to see drown, draining the idea to see what struggling looks like when all we needed was breath. The last poem I'm gonna read is it's called This Air, and it's after Podrick Otuma. And there's a line from Frank Ocean. The last part of Podres Otuma's poem, it's like one life, and it just reminded me of Nas's One Mic. I don't know why, but yeah. So this air brings a remembrance of the past. It leaves your body seeing an angle of death you haven't considered you might see twice. My first time smelling death, it was warm bullets whistling through the sky, flowing in rows amidst the dark, a line of red-winged ants with the speed of light. This time, it has decided to not show itself to the naked eye. This air drowns family, mixed blood, tells stories. This air, a reminder that though we've always breathed without thinking, it carries itself on new wings, teaching us how to count our breaths, new ways to hang our courage. We've known some numbers. The news in both wars counted vacant bodies, no bullets this time, but raging lungs, rapid rattle in the throats. Some numbers count. One life, one life, one life, one life, one life, one life, one life. Because each time it's the first time the air has left for good. Thank you. I'm gonna introduce our next poet. I hope I don't get anything wrong. So the name is Bernard Ferguson, is a queer Bahamian poet, essayist, educator, and dreamer currently living on the ancestral homeland of the Lenape and Dakota people. From the luck of friends and collaborators, and because of their proximity to legibility to and performance for white institutions, their poems and essays have been published and featured in places like the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Metropolitan Museum, Vice News, and the Canyon Review. They're currently working on writing and educational materials about the climate crisis and the severe planetary stakes of reparation or else revenge for the Atlantic slave trade, Black and Indigenous genocide, and all other capillary conditions of global white supremacy and colonialism. And then I think someone's going to read a poem, so I'll pass that on. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. I'm going to be reading a translation of Ben's poem Parkside and Ocean. It's translated in ngesiXhosa. Cala lebhaki kunye nolwandle. Kukho uhlobo lwenkumbulo oluvayo. Ngandlela ethile ubumiso. Njengenxeba nangona kungabi njalo. Kude kube umuntu bodala umva. Indledlana emnyama efumleyo eyona ndlela ekukuphela kwaye ukhuye ekhaya. Yonke indawo endiyathandayo yandiyanyazela kuba ndim ke. Kwaye ke bukho umkhumbulo njengoko umuntu anokuhlala enqwenela ekhanyayo njengeswekile elulwimini ekuphenyeni kwakhona. Lithini igama levumba lisibizayo kumama? Take it away, Ben.
Hi, y'all. Hello, y'all. Can you hear me? Cool. I've been here the whole time listening to folks listen to their translation and react to it. And it still did not prepare me for hearing my work in another language. Well, Thank you for the translation. I'm really grateful to be here, gathered amidst y'all. I am a queer Caribbean Bahamian poet, moving through a lot of migration issues in the US, and being in the US because of the powers that be. People here have come to really center the US and center America without capacity for an imagination for centering the globe instead of just America, right? But that's like imperialism, that's empire. And to begin this conference of Black African poetry happening in America, to begin that conference with a global outlook, with a global call in, feels really spectacular to me. And I feel really, really, really blessed to be a part of it and to witness it and to even offer some of my own words into that collection, to this gathering of voices. So thank you. I have two pieces. I'm going to share my screen while I do it, while I read these poems. Which one? There it is. So I'm going to read two pieces, one a little shorter than the other. Share. Okay, y'all should be seeing this joint. This is chat window. Okay, one second. One sec, gotta do it again. Okay, this should be better. Cool. So this first poem, as I mentioned, I'm from the Caribbean, genderqueer and very disabled. And what that means is as I'm moving through the US and constantly displaced from the Caribbean and constantly displaced within the US, I end up really isolated. And I think this is not a very specific experience to me. I'm hearing a lot of migration inside the language from all of the poets today. So I feel very seen by that language. I want to offer my own. So this is a poem about that isolation from being displaced so often. And this is called Departure Song, or maybe Departure Lament. I don't know. So here's the poem, Departure Song. There's a room inside my throat that I haunt like a ghoul, abandoned by myself. The room lodged there whenever I have to face the impossible choices, like how to better love who I love, or why am I being forced after all this time to migrate once more? Have I not paid well my human dues? Done well to lose count of the rooms erected like fortresses upon this land in which I've suffered, made love with someone American, or been brought to such glee that out loud I've said it, finally. Yes, I could live here. There are words to describe it. Human systems that have been studied and codified that come to bear down on me now. Egalitarianism, capitalism, supremacy, empire. Words that can slide atop one another and through which, like a prism, one can see me or one of my juked better selves, horror-like, their forms contorted and their timelines abused. None of these words are revolution, though. None of these words are doors. So that's the first piece. For the second piece, I'm gonna share the link to the document I'm looking at, so y'all can follow along. Quickly, I'm gonna drop it in the chat. I'm realizing there are people watching that will not have access to this link. What am I gonna do about that? I don't think I can do anything about that right now. You follow along as I showed on the screen. So I struggle right now with legibility. I struggle with what is the point of reading my poems out loud. I think I learned a lot of tools in the academy that let me get really precise with language, but in that hyper precision and in the craft tools that I use. Oh, thank you for sharing the link. In the craft tools that I learned in the academy and in the craft tools that I learned in my poetry studies, the craft tools that are on the page, reading a poem out loud that is moving through time complicatedly or has complicated metaphor is hard to track while reading it, like just out loud. It's hard for someone to track. And my whole thing is I'm writing to be understood. I'm writing to deliver a message. I like writing to offer people some practice with like putting images together, but that's really not the point. My point is to be understood and to say something is like I'm running out of time and I need you to understand something. And so this is the first time I'm trying this. I print out this poem. It is the only poem I've written in the past 2 years. And I tried to make some markings on here to help it, to make it easier to follow. I think we're all poets. I think a lot of us will be able to follow this easily, but I am writing with the general public in mind, hoping that anybody can read these poems and like understand what's going on and understand why, like what's the urgency, you know? And so, yeah, first time I'm trying this. This is a poem about, like 2 years ago, I was in a park in very gender fluidly dressed. And a Black African man who had dreads, who I'm assuming was from Jamaica or has roots ancestry in Jamaica because of the patois or because of the tongue that I heard. I know I have Jamaican siblings and kin. But he was very queerphobic and he like kind of just walked around me, circling me, threatening me. And so this poem is about that. That's the central point, but it moves through time a little bit complicatedly. Like it starts with a centering point. So it starts with what I'm calling story time, linear time. And then it goes into like a lyric time. I start singing a song in the middle of it. You can kind of see it as that. Or time slows down, or time freezes. And then linear time starts back up again. And then song time comes back in, so time slows down. Then it's linear time again. And then there's a montage of images, and then there's story time again. You can follow this in the link. There's also a marking here for what might be triggering. These red lines, just as a warning. If you don't want to read it, you can skip over it. If you do want to read it, you can focus on it. And if you just want to see the poem straight up at the bottom without any markings, you can just scroll down. So let's give this a shot. I'm also open to any feedback on what I'm attempting here. Yeah, I'm not really sure if this is useful or not, but this is a shot in the dark to see what happens. Trying to make the work more accessible. So this is called Poem About Policing, and it's after June Jordan. Gunshots for all the Batty boys, sings the man with dreads who was smiling just a second ago. A wide, unlonely smile as he approached me. Giddy, I'd call it from my distance, because my dreads are unlush and on point today, and threaded with jewels that make me think of my mother, and two pendants that came from two separate women I once called lovers. And I'm wearing pants as pink and as soft as the final flourish of a sunset. And so I reason the man must have been giddy because he felt whatever light supposedly pulls up from the lower parts of the body and blots out some of the darkness in a man's brain whenever he sees an attractive woman who looks from afar like a moon in the daytime after a too long and moonless night. But then he got close enough to see the beard, see my wary eyes, the clumsiness, the sharp corners of my body that our minds have come to understand as mannish. And he must have thought this was a bait and switch, a trick I played on him, or else to pull myself into a world where I am not in danger. I told myself maybe he could see closer up that my face looks like the face of an old abusive lover, or a person he wishes he could still share a meal with, but because of the world, he can never again. Or maybe my face looks too much like his own, and he's not yet reconciled with his own sadness, with what people who were supposed to love him have allowed him to become. And so now he's in a kind of grief. I tell myself this is why he frowned. I tell myself this version to eclipse the other version, so that the poison pouring through my capillaries, the clouds pouring into my synapses, the panic, the reaper of my imagination would be soothed, would be disarmed. But the man is unconfused now and has begun singing about his new need for revenge. Gunshots for all the Batty boys. And he's circling me now, a bleached white hawk, wings wide open, watching me, and I think waiting for an opening. And so the poison seeps deeper and takes hold across time. I feel it later on the Brooklyn 48, when the man in the sleeveless shirt has no option but to sit next to me, but first looks me down lengthwise. And his eyebrow raising is the sound of a gun's hammer gathering its energy. I feel it pulse and burst while a cousin and I have an impossible debate about the rights of queer people. And before I tell him that the wind between my legs in a dress reminds me of when we chased one another through our backyard, he blurts in rage that men in dresses should be shot in the head. The man is still circling, still singing a song he knows is a pill of cyanide. And I listen without making it seem like I'm listening. I mean, I watch him circle without looking at him for my safety, yes, but also because there is a robin circling too, bouncing, twisting its head and listening with its feet, looking for a worm, a meal, in the fine details of the soil beneath the grass, which I haven't been able to mention it till now, is green as all fuck. The field so thick and wide and green that, looking at the robin trotting through it, I begin to imagine, what if what we call the sea was not water, but thick, many feet tall grass with breezes threaded through it? I imagined, what if robins were to flutter through the green, green sea? What would that do to our forms? What would that do to our metaphors? Thank y'all. That's all I got for y'all today. I will introduce the next poet. Let me pull up my little notes. Got it. Koleka Patuma. So happy to introduce you, Koleka. Koleka Patuma is a multi-award-winning South African theater practitioner, writer, and poet. Her debut collection of poems, Collective Amnesia, was published in April 2017 and was awarded the 2018 Glenna Luce Prize for African Poetry and named one of the best books of 2017 by the Sunday Times. It has been translated in 8 languages. In April 2021, Mañana Media published her sophomore collection of poems, Hello, Bye-bye, Coco, Come In, and it was awarded the Standard Bank Young Artist Award, a first-time award for poetry in South Africa. Koleka is a Rolex mentor and a Protege Arts Initiative finalist for theater, a Forbes Africa 30 Under 30 honoree, and the 2019 Distel Playwriting Award for her play No Easter Sunday for Queers. She's the founder and director of Mañana Media, a disciplinary creative company that empowers and produces stories and works by Black queer women. Hell fucking yes. Thank you so much for being here, Koleka, and I feel really blessed to introduce you, but I think first we're gonna hear from Fodisa, who will read a translation. Thank you all.
You're muted, Fodisa. It's okay.
Look at me going off. But I was just saying that I'm happy to have the opportunity to translate part of Koleka's poem. This is Metsi. Mme nako le nako fa letlalo la rona le tsena ka fa tlase, e ka re letlhaka le gakologelwa gore le kile la nna dikeetane, le makhubu a kgoberegileng a eletsa go kgwela makgoba otlhe le dikepe mo lotshitshing lwa lewatle. Ba le pope jaaka bapalame, ba ile, ba nwetse. Letswai la lewatle ke keledi tsa bone. Ke sone se matlho a rona a tshubegang nako le nako fa re tsena ko tlase. Everyone, Koleka.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Potiso, for that translation of Water, and thank you, Bernard, for that beautiful introduction. Thank you, Gbenga, for the invitation to be in the space, and thank you to all of you for the poems. Tonight, I know that it's different times elsewhere. So, 1994, a love poem. I want someone who is going to look at me and love me the way that white people look at and love Mandela. Someone who is going to hold onto my memory the way that white people hold onto Mandela's legacy. A lover who will build Robben Island in my backyard and convince me that I have a garden, fresh air, a rainbow, and freedom. A TRC kind of lover. You don't know love until you have been loved, like Mandela. You don't know betrayal until you have been loved, like Mandela. You don't know fuckery until you have been loved, like Mandela. You don't know Msunari until you have been loved, like Mandela. And this is one of the many residues of slavery, being loved like Mandela. To earth with love, read the news, we measure the death toll, we watch the TV being swallowed by wildfires, we hold onto the furniture in the typhoon, we migrate to countries that tell us to go back to where it burns. We sink with sand. We witness how gravel caves underwater. We send kind regards to Pakistan, Nigeria, and KwaZulu-Natal. We demand the minimum from our leaders. We vote for leaders who promise to lead. We eat gnocchi while we eat gnocchi under solar panel roofs. We fall behind while they innovate ahead. We dry up all the taps. We thaw the glaciers in the name of expedition. We regard some wars as deadlier than others. We keep up with the Kardashians. We starve while eating the rich. We explode before the eyes of God. We Today, peaceful, tomorrow, warlike, the next day, warlike again. It begins on the coast, shorelines submerged in conflict and ceasefire. Those who do not have tongues to trade negotiate with their bodies. Swindlers settle inland, identifying trespassers. Millionaires and moguls harvest to hoard, uprooting indigenous practices in the interest of conservation. Conquest hunts and grabs and never asks for permission or forgiveness. The wild coast seabed recalls the Ogoni in Niger Delta, black rain poisoning pipes from Flint to the Lisbik River. Greed is an illness, too, a canker never satisfied, even as it depletes its own medicine. Citizens are sacrificed on the altar of expansionism, empires cultivated on the waves of exploitation. Nothing is too sacred to bulldoze or sell, not even cemeteries. Corporates have mastered how to commemorate the graves they are built on. They will always find money for surveillance and war. We are not too young to operate artillery or barricade doors. Militaries have training grounds in classrooms and churches too. And airstrikes do not wait for amen. We have been to so many vigils. We have become so many vigils. We have been to so many protests. We have become so many protests, holding up the weight of tomorrow's sorrow. Of grandmothers who gathered the family to kneel 5 to midnight on New Year's Eve, of grandmothers who held the pistol as tightly as the Bible and taught you to revere the devil as fervently as you did the Lord, who taught you that the devil and the Lord sometimes run in the same circles, of grandmothers who loved men who loved themselves more, of grandmothers who touched the hem of Jesus's garment with the same hands that played the lotto, healers who held onto one illness while letting go of another, who taught you how to let it go by putting it down, who knew when to say, "This is not mine," of grandmothers who knew the distance between their grief and their great-great-grandmothers could be measured in things we tiptoe around, of grandmothers who poured their tea onto saucers and twirled, of grandmothers who put their feet up and danced, who marched this way and that way for themselves, for you, who was spat on by Boers and still looked up, who could skop, skit, and donor with the same hands that could pray, who could tell you, "Tag," in Jesus' name, with the same mouth that said, "Be healed in Jesus' name." Black joy. We were spanked for each other's sins, spanked in syllables and by the word of God. Before dark meant home time. My grandmother's mattress knew each of my siblings, cousins, and the neighbor's children's morning breath by name. A single mattress spread on the floor was enough for all of us. Bread slices were buttered with irama and rolled into sausage shapes. We had it with black rooibos. We did not ask for cheese. We were filled. My cousins and I, we would gather around one large bowl of umbusho, each with their own spoon. Sugar water completed the meal. We were home and whole. But isn't it funny that when they ask about Black childhood, all they're interested in is our pain, as if the joy parts were accidental. I write love poems too, but you only want to see my mouth torn open in protest, as if my mouth were a wound with pus and gangrene for joy. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Come on now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can we have all our cameras on? Can we unmute ourselves and just release some claps, some snaps, some great energy? Oh my goodness. What an evening. What a beautiful, beautiful communion. We shouldn't ever stop doing this. Somebody should take all of us to Trinidad Nest, you know, right? Or to Belgium, like, please, let's do this. All
Yes,
right.
please.
Thank you so much. Somebody should
Tomorrow,
take
if
us
you
to
want, I don't know.
You're gonna take us to
Next week?
Dominican Republic, Yahisha?
Yeah, no. I'm in New York right now, but I'm meeting
Okay,
everybody
good.
invited to the Dominican Republic to my mom's house. She's gonna
Our,
make it.
our producer will take us to Botswana and we'll meet
Oh,
the
really,
president.
You know what? Actually.
Thank you all so much. This has been one of the most meaningful readings of my life. This has filled me with so much joy and possibility. I was moved by how the themes and our concerns were so connected, you know. In more than 3 of those poems, there was a sense of global Blackness, you know, in poems you had written years ago, you know. So I find that very compelling. I find that very moving. For our guests who are watching this, this is Abundance, Global Black Poetry Performance and Conversation, and it's part of the Furious Flower Poetry Conference 2024. It happens once in a decade. The poets you've been listening to are from all over the world. You know, our works can be found on the internet. A lot of us have books. You should check this out. For this, if you're attending the conference in person, you're going to see this beautiful program, and it has the bio of all of those wonderful poets. Okay, so I've been doing the good things for you guys. Alrighty. Thank you so much. My heart is just full of joy and gratitude, and I'm just deeply moved. Thank you, Megan. That's our communications person. You know, always helping the poets with the Zoom. Oh my God, poets in Zoom. Yeah, but that worked out. We made it work. Thank you all. I don't want to leave the Zoom. I can stay here, you know, but we have to go. This is recorded. Thank you so much. This is recorded. It's going to be on YouTube. You know, so it's a link you can always share with your people. I'm going to send an email thanking all of us, and we're going to be in an email thread. So I hope friendships are just sparking off. There are people here whose work I've always loved, and now I know we're going to be friends for a long, long time, you know? So yeah, I hope the same thing is happening to you. I just hope we build all kinds of interesting connections, and we keep doing magic, okay? Thank you, guys. Thank you, folks. And I
Bye-bye,
will see
everyone.
you when I see you. Thank you. We did magic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone.